The government just said every crypto except Bitcoin is a scam. Justin Sun just moved nearly $250 million, and Cardano's top NFT soon to be on Ethereum. This is Around the Blockchain. How are we doing today? Make sure you hit that like button. We have a great episode of Around the Blockchain, including a first-time guest. We're going to start on the top left with Evan Aldo, and you're already nodding your head. Were you in a trade this recent weekend?
Yeah, there was I've been short on the market for a good amount. Swing short. I do think ultimately we're still kind of in bearish until we decisively break 25K. There's a lot of similarities, a lot of bearish things popping up. You got that weekly death cross, a lot of similarities to post.com bubble. Bitcoin dominance looks really bullish. I still think we got to get a few more tourists out of this game before we really hit a decisive bottom. So until we break 25K decisively, not looking good. We rejected pretty fiercely off of that. Until we break that decisively, I still think we can make lower lows in, towards the end of this year, maybe into early next year. Looks like we're going into recession. S&P 500, NASDAQ not looking good either. So hate to be the bearer of bad news.
If you ask me, I think the Bears, they're just waiting for Cocaine Bear to release. So then they're going to turn the markets around. We also have Firoz on. Firoz, how are you doing? How was your weekend, buddy?
It was good. It's good. Great to be back on the show, DZ. Thank you for having me.
It's always a good time. And he has that library packed, and you better look out. He's not talking about the library versus SEC case, although he has his eye on that as well. First time on, we have Web3 William. Web3 William, where can they find your stuff?
Hey, how's it going? Hey, I've been on before, twice.
Man, you know what? I think I partaked a little too much in my 20s. So, I have so much. I have limited shelf space, and it's just Bitcoin with a little Cardano.
You can find me on my Twitter address down there. I'm running a few projects on the internet computer blockchain. I actually hosted a Twitter space today with Ben. So, keep him busy, bro.
All right, William Laurent, some say he's a saint. And then wrapping it up, we have Crypto Crow, of course, last but not least. Crypto Crow, how goes it? Are you ready to talk a little Cardano later in the show?
Always ready to talk about Cardano. Contrary to Web3, this is only my first time ever being invited on here. I don't know what's taking you guys so long, but I'm glad you finally wisened up.
Well, it took us a while, but we finally got there. Quick question, Crypto Crow. Do you actually hold a clay? Hold one of the Cardano clays?
What?
The Claymate. We're talking about Claymates.
I don't have a Claymate. No, I don't.
Oh, man, we might have to change that before the end of the show. But like I said, we're going to be talking about government saying everything except Bitcoin is a scam. This is not hyperbole. We have Gary Gensler saying every single crypto in the world is a security except for the big orange bee, of course. And he did this with the New Yorker magazine over the weekend and saying everything is security. And these tokens are securities because there's a group in the middle and the public is anticipating profits based on that group. Now, Evan, I know you're mostly a chart guy, and it makes sense, right? Bitcoin, there's it's not really centralized. There's no entity. It's just Bitcoin, right? But couldn't you say the Lightning Network is building? Couldn't you expect a little bit more of a profit if the Lightning Network were to continue to expand and continue to build and continue to put out a good suite of options for traders? Isn't that an outside party that we're kind of hoping for Bitcoin? So my question to you is, what is the difference with Bitcoin versus Ethereum when everybody's building all over Web3?
Yeah, I think that's ultimately kind of what's going to, happen out of it. I think ultimately Gary Gensler and the SEC, like, they don't really understand all of it. They're still learning about it, like all of us. And, they're kind of always, the government's always one step behind in a lot of these things. And ultimately, when I look at the charts, I see Bitcoin dominance looking extremely, extremely, extremely bullish. So I think it kind of corresponds with the FUD that we're probably going to see over the next 6 to 12 months, with a lot of altcoins really bleeding against Bitcoin. And I think the SEC, with regulation coming, is really going to crack down on a lot of these altcoins. Now, I'm not saying necessarily we haven't hit the bottom yet. I think we haven't, but there's a strong case to be made that we have hit the bottom. But I think what I could say with a lot of confidence is the majority of altcoins, not all of them, some of them go crazy for whatever reason, but the majority of altcoins will most likely bleed significantly against Bitcoin in the next 6 to 12 months. I think this is a great long-term Bitcoin accumulation period. Maybe hold, if you want to put money in alts, hold the money in Bitcoin for now, convert them to alts once we see what happens with the SEC, because I can say with a lot of confidence, I think this stuff is going to create a lot of FUD and a lot of money is going to come out of a lot of altcoins.
All right. Well, that's probably a good prediction. Now, Firoz, do you think that the SEC will make good on Gary Gensler's claims? Maybe not attack 20,000 protocols, but do you think that they'll go after hundreds, potentially thousands? Or are they going to continue to maybe just select a few participants to make an example out of?
Yeah, I mean, I'm no lawyer, but certainly, I don't think they could pretty much sit there and say every single security, is well, every single asset is a security. I mean, not legally anyway. I mean, and again, that would be impossible to. It would be impossible to enforce, actually, if you think about it. And the other thing I would say is also, authority, resources, police, but to police the entire crypto space, there's just not enough manpower to do that. But like you said, I think they'll try. I think what they're planning to do personally is they'll try and find a few big cap projects, maybe a few mid caps, and maybe a few small caps, right? And the idea is that you sort of go after each of those ranges, and you're pretty much trying to assert your authority to say this is what's going to happen. Now, some, like we've seen, who do have capital, who do have, the runway to go head to head with them, XRP being one of them, they'll have their day in court, and they are, and they'll fight that. Others who might not have as much capital will most likely say, you know what, we're going to call it quits and either pay a fine or disappear. And the other thing, though, which I think is pretty bad, is that unfortunately, certainly from a US perspective, is that I think you'll start seeing innovation start leaving the country, right? They're going to go to, more friendly countries where projects, are more favorable and they don't have such harsh, negative views around them.
Yeah, I tend to agree to that too. Much to my country's dismay, I think we're pushing a lot of this overseas. Now, William, I was actually surprised to learn the head of the CFTC, make sure I get his name right, Rostin Benham, he actually agreed with most of Gary's takes here, saying, hey, I agree with his take. Most of these are securities. Now, were you shocked that the CFTC is just giving up power to the SEC?
Absolutely.
And why do you think that they're doing that?
Absolutely shocked. And also, DZ, in your defense, the other two times I was on the show, Ben was a host, and I think Nick was a host. So
that makes sense. All right. So you get 2 points for making me feel like I'm not losing my mind here.
Yeah, I'm shocked. I mean, that there's been this battle, I would say, the last 1 to 2 years between the CFTC and the SEC to see who's going to be the big cheese in town, right? So if you look at the CFTC has been trying to make examples out of different, I'm not going to name the platforms, but there's one platform that is being sued as running an illegal derivatives exchange. And they've identified a few of these to really, really flex their muscle, right? So to see them fall in line, I'm not really sure what's going on. I just want to also piggyback on what Firoz says. Yeah, money goes where it's appreciated. Intellectual capital goes where it's appreciated. And the U.S. is not going to lose the competitive advantages that they have on, overregulation. And if you look at, I was stumbled across something today that I found ridiculous. There's a state senator or legislator, Robert Peters in Illinois, that is wants to order blockchains to basically be immutable, right? So he wants to put legislation forth that would, invalidate the whole idea of smart contracts. You should look it up. It's just amazing. They don't know what the hell they're doing. How are they going to get legislation passed, and how is it going to make it through the Supreme Court when it gets fought?
Yeah, and them trying to legislate, it's like me being an inspector for a SpaceX rocket. I can hold a sheet of paper and pretend I'm doing something, but at the end of the day, I have zero idea what I'm doing here. Well, Crypto Crow, the SEC is seemingly very comfortable with these blanket statements. Gary's going out there, he's dropping videos with steak slices, and he's out there making these crazy proclamations that everything except Bitcoin's a security. Why do you think he's so confident in these statements? Is he just kind of blustering to maybe trick us into thinking this is the law of the land? Or does he have an idea of what legislation is coming and knows it will be the law of the land?
Oh gosh, that really is a tough question. I mean, here's what I think. I think that contrary to what was said earlier, I don't think the SEC is ignorant to crypto. I think they know full well how it works. I think they know full well what the technology is and what it means and how quickly it changes. And I don't believe that such a group is lost on the idea of blockchain tech, decentralization, and things like that. I've talked to some of these people. They're very, very smart individuals. I think that and I've said this on my channel quite a few times over the years. Like, I've known that there is going to come a point where regulation is going to beat out and beat down a lot of the stable tokens, right? Because they want to bring in this CBDC and they want to basically bring in this controlled digital dollars, right? And other countries are already integrating it and things. And when I look at that relationship to what that means to altcoins and a lot of the technology associated with altcoins, and then on top of that, I look at the idea that who is like, let's all be real honest for a minute. Who buys any cryptocurrency because its use case is so strong you can't live without it, as opposed to putting money into an asset because you believe that the likelihood is that it's going to go up and be worth more than you paid for it, right? And I think that when they say, there's this group in the middle and then the other group doesn't understand, I mean, what they're ultimately saying is that there are a lot of crypto projects out there, decentralized, centralized, it doesn't really matter, that are ultimately controlled, promoted, and all these narratives are created around these applications or these projects or these cryptocurrencies. And these narratives are created specifically to create hype, FOMO, excitement around building a community that can drive the valuation of these different cryptocurrencies up. That, I think, is what the SEC is looking at and saying, this is a security. People aren't buying it because by buying this token, I can get access to this, or I can buy advertising, or I can, some of them do, right? Some of them have use cases like that, but the majority of the technology that's out there right now doesn't really have that much of a use case that merits the tokens. And so what brings the value of these tokens up so that the development teams can continue working and things like that are the speculators that are buying on the hope that these tokens increase in value. And so, who's supposed to police that? I don't necessarily know 100%. I do believe that there are a lot of securities in the crypto space, more than we probably think. But that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody like Gary should come out and throw some blanket statements saying, hey, everything is under our reign. I think by doing that, they're saying everything is under our reign until you can afford to prove otherwise. And that, to me, it's just an element of control. And to wrap it up, there are other elements to a lot of this. Politically, what does it mean politically for the SEC to be monitoring and effectively policing this space over like the CFTC or anyone else for that matter? I think there's so many different variables that are in play that we still, as laymen's looking in from the outside, don't fully understand yet. But I think we're going to when these regulations actually start getting dropped on everyone, and then we're going to be able to paint the picture, and everything leading up to that is going to make a lot more sense.
I think you bring up a fair and accurate point where there aren't really cryptos where it's absolutely necessary for you to have to interact. I don't think people need to spend Doge on Dallas Maverick tickets that bad. I guess there's probably some construction workers who really wanted those Percocets from Mount Gox, and they might say it was a need. But to be fair, I don't think I would agree with that point for the most part. Well, let's have a little fun here with the quick lightning round. Jake Paul just had a big bout last night, and Drake famously bet $400,000. He actually bet in Bitcoin and was going to receive $1 million in Bitcoin if he ended up winning the bet. He was a slight underdog. Now, we're going to ask everybody the same question. I'm going to start with you, Evan. You're doing a big sports bet. Is it better to use fiat or Bitcoin? Because you might double that Bitcoin.
Oh, man. It goes onto I think ultimately it would be a little bit better to use Bitcoin for at least in a place like now when you're in such a good accumulation phase. Also, probably a lot of perks, faster, transmission time. And a lot of the gambling sites do take it now, but it kind of goes back and forth to the thing, do we want gambling to be really legalized and decentralized with what we're seeing with DraftKings, or do we more underground, like how we see it with like Bovada and using Bitcoin. So it's the big thing right there. I think it's ultimately kind of long-term bullish news seeing Drake use it. But then again, if you're like gambling, especially for a sports bet, something that's harder than even trading, I would say. And doing that means you're kind of just willing to lose, lose your Bitcoin. So it goes hand in hand. You look at it's kind of like buying something with Bitcoin. When you buy something with Bitcoin, you're selling it. So that's the thing. You kind of want to keep it to store it. But at the same time, I think the utility of more people using it is a really, really good thing. But, you look at both sides like that. So that's what I would say about that. Like good and bad. I mean, good if you use it and you're the winner on it. But obviously we know sports gambling. I'd rather trade all day than do sports gambling.
We're showing a picture here. I definitely want to go in the ring with either one of these fellows. Now, Firoz, what are you making a big bet on? Are you using Bitcoin or are you using fiat?
Hey man, I'm using Bitcoin. If I use fiat, I'll have to explain that to the other half exactly where that money went and why I lost. And if it's Bitcoin, she doesn't really follow much of that stuff anyway. So for me, it's easy to hide that transaction.
hey, stack those Satoshis. William, where are you landing on this? Using Bitcoin or are you using fiat?
Yeah. So why I appreciate the philosophical angle, right? Of okay, Bitcoin getting traction and I'll take the ultimate fungibility of cash, right? I want to receive my winnings in gold. Hell, forget it. I want to be able to hold it in my hands, man. And yeah, I would definitely take that bet in cash.
All right, and we have one final photo. Crypto Crow, you're actually getting a different question because those who don't know, he's like 6'7". Would you step in the ring with these folks, either one, for $400,000 in Bitcoin?
All day. I'm 7 foot tall, 285 pounds, and I will kick someone's head off. So, and even if I didn't, it's still worth 400 grand in Bitcoin. It's probably going to be, like 1.2, 1.3 million here, but in 2025 anyway. So,
all right.
Yeah,
let us know. Let us know in the chat. We're watching the chat. Put capital Y, capital N. Would you step in the ring with Jake Paul or Tommy Fury for 400K? Crypto Crow, quick question. Would you step in the ring with Mike Tyson in his prime for 400K?
Yeah, I would.
Woo!
Actually. I mean, I would just stand up straight.
Okay, that was a good one. All right, you could maybe do that. I don't want to be eating out of a straw for the rest of my life. So the downside risk, I don't know if it's worth it for me. But let's talk a little staking. No, we're not talking about Gary Gensler cutting up a steak into 3 pieces with 2 halves. No, we're talking about Justin Sun moving $250 million. We've all done it. You've all hit that transaction before. He sent 50,000 ETH on 3 different transactions. Each were roughly, 150 altogether. So 50 times 3. Each of them about $80 million. 3 of these transactions, just casual $80 million. Lido, don't know, you could stake your ETH with Lido in anticipation of the Shanghai upgrade. And so you're able to earn yield, but then able to withdraw, albeit a slightly less percentage there. Firoz, while I have you on here, I'm actually interested in what you think about Lido and everything. We maybe unpack it a little bit for the viewers. Are you surprised so many people are willing to, pay such a premium, even though you get a little bit less with ETH, but we have zero idea when ETH 2.0 is going to be live, when you're going to be able to withdraw. Are you surprised that those percentages are so close? I would have figured Lido would just be a mere fraction, but it's a significant percentage.
No, I was thinking about this earlier today, and there's 2 things here, basically. First of all, if we kind of think about it, and as you sort of touched on earlier, using liquid staking derivatives like Lido, like Rocket Pool, or even Frax Finance as well, the idea behind that is obviously you're earning your yield, and your Ethereum isn't, okay, it's locked up, but it isn't locked up because you get a staked version of that back. And then you can go and either lend it, trade it, and obviously make some gains on it as well. Now, one of the other things that I'm thinking, or maybe perhaps what Lido is also banking on, and some of these other staking depositors, ultimately is that perhaps that they're hoping that you go ahead and you trade some of that ETH. You go ahead, you try and lend some of that ETH out, and maybe your trade isn't that great. Maybe your DeFi skills aren't the best, and you're going ahead and thinking that while you're earning yield, you're going to earn some more ST ETH, and then you're able to trade that stake version of Ethereum back in Lido eventually, when the Shanghai upgrade comes out, and you can start getting your Ethereum back. But if you don't, then this is where the problem lies: is that you've got nothing to get back your Ethereum with, because you've just collateral for collateral, right? It's one for one. So that's something that I've been thinking and mulling over in my head, to be honest.
Yeah, I think we're kind of on the same page here. Like, as we get further and further, that number just seems to go one direction, and yeah, it's going to be interesting.
But also, the other thing to bear in mind is that obviously at the moment a lot of people are using these liquid staking derivatives in order to get yield and be able to DeFi and make money. The other thing to bear in mind is that when the Shanghai upgrade does come, and supposedly it's next month, but this is Ethereum, so God knows at this point. But one thing that I will say, just say that it does. I suspect that a lot more people will start using liquid staking derivatives over Ethereum's native chain, because with the Ethereum native chain, you're not going to get anything back. Your Ethereum is staked, albeit some may see it as a safer option, but you're not going to get anything back as well. So there's that play as well that I'm seeing.
Okay, so yeah, a little bit, you have a little bit better chance of it just not blowing up and getting hacked. So maybe that's where that percentage is being so close. Evan, I want to ask you, do you think there's any strategy to Justin Sun's move? I mean, presumably he's not locking it up for 8 hours and then just going to, pull it all out. Is there, maybe some on the larger time frames with Ethereum? Are we seeing money flow heading back into the green relative to Bitcoin? I mean, why do you think he made this such a giant move?
I think he has a long-term perspective, and I mean long-term, not to long-term by a lot of us, long-term to what you see with a lot of whales. 3 to 5 years, I think there's a good shot Bitcoin or Ethereum, outperforms Bitcoin. But for the short term, I think next 6 to 12 months, I think ETH will really bleed against Bitcoin. But I don't think he really cares about that. I think he just wants to kind of diversify right now, and I think he's got that 3 to 5 year trajectory. Which, if you have that, I think ETH is a really good play against Bitcoin. But right now, I think it's kind of, I don't want to say a no-brainer. That's how you kind of jinx yourself. But it's kind of very likely, I will say, with the charts and the fundamentals, that Bitcoin will outperform Ethereum for at least, the next 6 to 12 months. That would be the place to try to do it, I think. But ultimately, somebody like that, who's a real big whale, he's probably going to try to hold this for years. He's probably trying to diversify. He's going to set it and forget about it. He's got enough money where it's more of a preservation of wealth rather than, get rich quick, which is why I think a lot of people mess up. They're too much flopping and groping. They're not viewing it as, kind of a multi-year type of thing. So that's what I think.
Nothing pisses me off more than a flopper and groper, except maybe a pencil neck. Can't stand those. All right. Now, Web3, William, I want to ask you, what do you think of that Web3 Tron community? What is Tron community thinking right now? They see Justin Sun committing $250 million to just an entirely different chain.
I think they're shaking their head, but I don't think it's a big deal, because Justin Sun is always doing something unpredictable, right? Remember last year when there was a run on Huboy for I think it was 100 million, and Justin had that 100 million withdrawal from Binance, 50 million in USDC, 50 million in USDT, and threw that into Huboy, and it was like, oh, well, no, nothing's wrong. I'm just, whatever. So he's always doing things like this. He's very unpredictable. I can't really say what his strategy is, but I don't really think it's a big deal. It's going to be a big deal with the community, because we just don't know what he's doing.
Yeah, and last I remember, maybe someone can correct me in the comments or in the chat right now. I know he sold at, I believe, 4,400, and I didn't think he actually rebought in. I was just going to yellow copy his trades, because you check his history, he's one of the better people you can copy trade. But I'm not sure if he had bought or not. If he did sell that much and still has that much ETH, that's, kudos, hats off to him. Now, Crypto Crow, I don't know what your thoughts are on Justin Sun. I'm kind of interested in that. What do you think about Justin Sun? And secondly, when can Cardano expect some DeFi moves like this? I know Zed is launching. I know, we have some stable coins on the horizon. Is this a hoop dream that will never happen? Or is this, by the next bull run a couple years from now?
Isn't Justin Sun like the Biden of crypto? Didn't he plagiarize some stuff back in the day? I don't remember. Listen, I don't
that was
really
in the
have anything.
70s. We don't talk about Biden, copying people. That was in the 70s,
Yeah,
50 years ago. He was
ago,
only
so
50 years old then.
It didn't happen if it was a certain period of time. Yeah, I actually used to have some fun with Tron back in the day, because it was so cheap, and it was, to me, it was it was kind of a, I don't know, not really a meme coin. Like it had a lot of promise. And of course, Justin was always doing crazy stuff to try and get the word out there. He was kind of like the Asian Richard Hart, right? Where he's just like, look at me and buy my token. It's like a penny and it's going to make you rich someday. But nothing really ever came of it. And somehow he still managed to make like an insane amount of money off of all of the antics and stuff, and more power to him. I mean, I don't remember him ever screwing anybody or anything like that, but I don't, there's so much about this stuff that I intentionally don't follow very closely. Anything that has to do with DeFi, I'm, maybe it's because I'm old now, but I kind of stay away from a lot of it. Like I'm looking at this liquid.fi website and I'm thinking they have Solana, stake Solana. And I'm like, why? You're not going to be able to, the network will go down as soon as you try to cash out. Why do I want to bother with this? And to each their own, but I'm not really all about Tron anymore. To me, it's like it's like the Neo. Like, what's Neo done in all of this time? So I don't know. To me, it sounds like just somebody trying to make some money and get back into the news. I don't know. Sorry, I can't offer very much.
No, I'm still waiting on Namecoin to really pop off. It's just happening any bull run now. All right, well, let's talk about Claymates. Claymates, one of the top Cardano projects. We actually did a documentary on it on NFT Alpha. If you want to look up Claymates documentary, but they're set to make a little bit of history. They're going to be the first Cardano NFT project to find itself in the Sandbox world. That is right, Sandbox from Ethereum. This will be in collaboration with Smaller Studios, and that is based out of Singapore. And I can say, I'm following that team's Twitter. They've been spending a lot of time in Singapore over the last 6 months. They've landed a collaboration with Charles Hoskinson. They've landed a collaboration with Snoop Dogg. In my personal opinion, it's the closest thing to Bored Ape on Cardano, although it's just a fraction of the value. It's definitely seen as one of the higher ranked NFTs in the ecosystem. So, Evan, I mean, one, you don't really follow NFTs too much, correct?
Not too much, but
all right. I want to ask you about Cardano then, while I have a trader here.
Mm-hmm.
We're down $3.09. It's 38 cents if I had to guess. We're down about 85%. What do you see for Cardano's next bull run? There's a lot of resistance at $2. There's a lot of resistance at $3. I think there would be a lot of resistance at $5. What is it about Cardano where they just love those set numbers? $1, $2, $3. They always just seem to hang out in these psychological ranges. Do you expect that continuing?
Well, let me show you my chart on Cardano, because I've done a lot of TA on Cardano, and let me just get this up here real quick. I actually got it up right now. My kind of guess, I know this is going to be a little bit pessimistic. You can see this right here. I think we could see a trajectory down to, I know it's low, but around that 13-cent area for the full bubble pop pattern. I know the Cardano fans aren't going to like this, but by that area, if you look at some of these time frames on Market Cypher, you do have a big trend reversal right here on the 6th day. And this one in 2019, we could have 2019, that brought us down quite a bit. I'm kind of feeling like either something, a bigger drop down, I mean, this was the pandemic, or kind of a gradual decrease right here over the next towards the end of the year, which is a possibility of kind of this area. I also think it's going to bleed against Bitcoin for some time. If you look at this chart, ultimately we bled in the last bear market, even after we were bottom. This was into the end of 2019 into 2020. Really, you wouldn't miss out on anything until after the pandemic dropped down. So it can bleed against Bitcoin for quite a bit longer. The way I'm mapping it out here, I think it's probably going to be a big minimum. You should wait probably until the middle of this year. Mid to late this year would be the time to get in. I also think that's probably going to be the time to get into that NFT project as well. Mid to late this year. You probably wouldn't miss out until I would say March, April of next year, I think. So you got time.
All right. Well, Crow, I want to ask your opinion about that, the Bitcoin Cardano pair. I think that's pretty important. Do you see us bleeding Satoshis that deep into the middle of this year? Or is, kind of what Evan was saying, Bitcoin a lot of alts are going to bleed against it. Will Cardano fit in that trend, or will it buck the trend, in your opinion?
So it's funny because I've never talked to this guy. I've never, honestly, I didn't know who he was until today. I'm sorry. I'm going to start checking him out because what he said, I really resonated, because I've said some similar things where I've told people I thought Cardano would get down to 14 cents. And everybody's like, you're crazy. What are you doing? Why would you say that? You're a Cardano bull. And I'm like, but it doesn't change what's happening. Like, and so if it does get down to 13 or 14 cents, well, I'm going in hard. But I also said before that when Bitcoin bottoms, altcoins, especially Cardano specifically, drops another 20% in value, and then it creates kind of a pattern from there. So, and that's exactly what did happen when Bitcoin hit like 15.5. Cardano did drop another 20%. I had people reminding me on Twitter that I said that. I'm like, yeah, you're right, but I still don't necessarily. I'm not 100% convinced the bottom is in. Moving forward, back in the last cycle, I remember there was a time where you could get like 400,000 Cardano for one Bitcoin, right? And that window went away really quickly. It was almost like a bottom to Cardano's Bitcoin, right? So there is something there. However, I will say that was before Cardano did so much, right? And Cardano's still not done. So every time Cardano hits a new major milestone, everybody knows I'm waiting on Hydra, and we're, once the scalability starts happening more, we get more into the interoperability of things, which is this whole claymation. This could be a fun thing. I think that kind of discrepancy between Cardano, Ethereum, and Bitcoin, I think that'll start to narrow more and more as Cardano picks up steam and picks up its market cap dominance, which I've seen. I just did a video today where I've kind of gone into predicting Cardano's price and why, and explaining if you look at the growing Cardano's market dominance based on like its dominance of the total market capitalization, it's been on a pretty steady incline throughout time. So, peak to peak to peak. So yeah, I think there's going to come a time where Cardano completely breaks free from a lot of that, I think. And it's not any more of a factor, but for right now, yeah, I can see some of that happening.
Okay. All right. Well, we're keeping an eye out on that BTC ADA pair. Now, Web3, William, we see a trend happening where we have more and more NFT projects. They're going cross-chain. They're collaborating with projects on other chains. They're migrating to another chain, like from Solana. Is there any chain in particular you see emerging as a winner from that? I know Polkadot maxis will say it's what we're built for. People on Ethereum will say, well, it's actually happening here. You have the Solana guy. He's pulling out lint from his pocket. Who's going to be the winner in an interoperable world with NFTs and the like?
That's a really difficult question. I still looking at I think Polygon. I've been very bearish on Solana in the past. I'm becoming a little bit more bullish. But I would say look at look at some of the activity that you see happening on Polygon. They spent I think burned through $100 million last year on partnerships and a lot of things that didn't pan out very well. But I think they've learned from their mistakes, and I think that they are probably one of the best contenders to be in this space of entering the interoperability of NFTs in from a perspective that will hopefully succeed. Yeah.
I think Polygon actually probably a really good answer. We say it on the show all the time. They have by far the best biz dev team in crypto. I don't think anyone's really even touching their coattails at this point. All right, final question. Firoz, we have them. They're teaming up with Sandbox. There's a lot of mixed reviews on Sandbox. There seems to be, they had some options. They could have gone Sandbox. They could have chose Cornucopias. That's a Cardano native. They could have followed Apple, gone after Decentraland. Heck, they could have got Web 2 developers and try to launch something on Oculus even. Why do you think that they chose Sandbox? Is it Sandbox's biz dev? And I mean, where do you see the metaverse world looking like in the future? Will they all coexist? Or will it be like a Google, maybe one or two winners?
No, I think there's only going to be one or two winners. I think they'll all coexist, but you're going to get the sort of main two or three at the top that are going to take most of the market share, right? And then other people will sort of get a piece of the pie, and maybe there might be some sort of interoperability ID that allows you to jump between metaverses overall. But I think one of the main reasons Clay Nation chose Sandbox, to integrate is because obviously they picked, I'd say, one of the more popular, innovative virtual worlds that we've got out there. I don't like to I suppose one project that I was looking at recently was Blocktopia. And interestingly enough, I kind of went into their metaverse as a beta tester recently. But to be honest, I wasn't really blown away. All it was just one massive arena, and that was it. But what I think you get out of Sandbox ultimately is, a suite of tools, right? You got Vox Edit, you got the game maker from it, and all of those allows you to create voxel assets, which is really good for gaming experiences and making it with ease. Because that's the other thing, you don't want a project coming in and then having to learn something up from the ground up. You kind of want that kind of ease that we need within crypto. We don't really have that in this day and age in a lot of projects in general. User interfaces, UI, all of that stuff always becomes a bit of a learning block more than anything else. I think one thing that I will say though is one of the other projects potentially was is Cosmos that you didn't mention. I mean, they're planning to be the blockchains of blockchains, so there's a potential interoperability play there as well for Sandbox.
Yeah, shout out to Cosmo Joe. And I'll give them one more shout out. We do like the Clay Nation team. They've always been nice to us over here at Hit Network. They do have the Stand launching. It's where it's going to be basically a clothing store. Absolutely zero to do with Stephen King's The Stand, which still deserves a good adaptation. And I really am only bringing this up so I can share that thought. You ruined it, Stephen King. Someone please make a docuseries. HBO, buy the rights. That's all we're going to say. But it looks like Crypto Crow end up Ooh, that was a close one. All right, Crypto Crow, you ended up taking it home. Some say, Crow took the feast here, so feel free. You murdered the rest of the guests. Leave us with some parting thoughts, please.
I murdered, like the murder of crows. Okay, I forget how this goes. I'm supposed to say stuff. I don't know. Check out murderofcrows.io and mint an NFT. How about that? Make me a lot of money. How about doing? I have to buy hair dye, folks. So show pity. Yeah, I actually like this Clay Nation. I've been checking out a lot of these here on Twitter. So maybe I'll have to go look and see what they're worth. Maybe I can afford buying one, maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. But otherwise, I'm just going to settle for a Murder of Crows NFT. So.
Hey, they both sound like a winner. I think they're about 3,300 Cardano, if you're wondering. Maybe one of those Bitcoins you sold for 400K. You might have to eat into it. We're kidding. We know he was buying, then not selling. That's all we got time for today, Bit Squad. Make sure you check out everyone's channel. Link is in the description. While you're at it, like a video, like their videos, leave a comment. We'll see you tomorrow.